Hi, I'm Rosalie Corrame. I am a transformational somatic trauma healing coach. And this is one in a series of videos called Understanding Developmental Trauma and Healing. My passion and vision is that everyone who has a history of developmental trauma will have free and abundant access to information and resources that really help, so that you feel seen and understood, so that you understand and appreciate yourself better, realizing where you've come from and where you are and how much you have done, and so that you have a variety of options for ways that you can support and accelerate your own healing journey, regardless of whether or not you are also working with a trauma healing facilitator or group. I'm glad that you're here. I hope you find this information helpful and useful, and thank you for being you. I want to talk about hidden emotions. I'm standing up. It's an interesting, different perspective. I'm at my office, and so I don't have my usual configuration. So this is sort of an experiment. What does my body think and feel about recording standing up? Hidden emotions. So here's the deal, as I say many times. When we experience developmental trauma, what that experience consists of is that as a small person, something happened and it was terrifying, overwhelming, threatening, way too much. Okay? So that happened in one form or another, or many forms. And the wisdom of the survival wisdom, right, of millennia of mammalian and human existence kicks in at that point and says, this is indeed too much. We're going to clear this out. We're going to hide it away. This human here can't function properly enough with emotions that are this intense and this painful. So the emotions get hidden. Sometimes the entire experience gets hidden. We do not remember that experience that caused so much suffering for us. And so then when I have a similar experience a little later in my life, maybe when I was still a child or maybe as an adult at some point, when I have an experience that feels really similar, similar enough that it sort of calls up the same emotional configuration, when that happens, then like these hidden emotions, right, start to vibrate. They recognize the signal, and they just kind of come in and show up and amplify whatever experience is happening in present time, making it feel worse than it really is. And then that's too much. And so our minds and bodies will take that emotional experience and hide it away too. That's a thing that can happen. And all that can happen like this, right? In less than a second, I'll have a reaction or response to something. My body will recognize it. The old scary emotions will show up, and the whole thing will get shut down, hidden away. And I might just have a bit of a startle and not even know it happened. So we are all hiding emotions from ourselves. We're all hiding emotional experience, memories, stuff that's way too intense. I'm pretty sure this is universal, and my audience is people with significant developmental trauma. So if you're in my audience, you have plenty of this, right? Now, here's the thing. If there's this huge scary emotion over here that I'm not really feeling, but it's right over here. If I know it's right here, that could be pretty upsetting and unsettling. So frequently with this developmental trauma, not only do I take this whole enormous, awful emotional experience and hide it, but then I put up a wall and put up drywall and paint over it or wallpaper it or decorate it so that I don't even know that that whole thing is there. That's what we do. This is what we do. This is what developmental trauma has us do. This is what we are wired for. Right? We have these awful experiences, we hide them, and then we hide from ourselves the fact that there's even anything hiding there. And then I come into my adulthood and I'm all eager to grow and actualize, and I do some work and I discover that I'm angry. I didn't know I was angry. I always thought I was a person who never got angry, who just didn't have any anger. And I discover that I'm angry. And I do my work with this, and I begin to feel it in my body, and I'm aware, and I realize it's from the past. And I go, oh wow, I've got this anger from the past. And I embrace it, and I work with it, and I integrate it. And I'm like, yes, I did my thing, I did my work. I got my anger integrated now. And this is awesome. It is so awesome that we're doing this work. It's so good. It's so important. And it's like, to just use the metaphor that I used before, which probably isn't a perfect metaphor, but oh well. We hide this stuff, we put a wall over it, we paint and decorate the wall. And then we hide some more stuff and we put another wall over it and we paint and decorate that wall. And we've got layers and layers and layers. So I break through the first layer, right? I just say, hey, this isn't a real wall. This is like anger pretending to be something else. Like, break it down, integrate it, feel it, right? Own that anger, and celebrate. Yeah, I did my work. And now there's a regular wall there. And of course, in actuality, there are several more layers just of anger, right? I claimed this much, I found this much of my anger. I expressed this much of my anger. I felt that much. There's way more anger. And not only that, but there's shame, and there's terror, and there's grief, and there's the pain of abandonment. We feel so happy when we make progress, and we should be, because it's awesome. But like the thing this developmental trauma survival mechanism does, right, is it's always hiding and minimizing what's hiding. So I'm always going to feel like I've done a much bigger percentage of all my work than what I've really done. I always feel like, okay, yeah, I know there's still some stuff. Now I know, I'm still quirky, people still react to me. I get it. I know I still got some stuff. But I think I started with this much and now it's probably just this much, right? Like I really chipped away at it. I did great. There's not that much left. I'm this close. I'm this close to being like one of these super spiritual beings, right? We believe that. And it makes sense we believe that because that's what our bodies are telling us, because that's the whole mechanism. The whole mechanism is like, don't let this person know, don't let myself know how much is still there, because it would be too depressing. It would be too much, right? Just let us know a little bit at a time so we can really feel hopeful, and then we can feel celebratory and successful, when we have a success, when we do our growth. So that's where you and I are living. We're living in this place where we've done some of our work and we're better than we were, and we know there's some stuff left, and we have no idea how much it is, and we really feel like it's a lot less than it really is. because that's what we do. We hide it from ourselves. Okay, so some people ask, well, if it's hiding, why don't we just leave it in hiding? You know? And get on with our lives. And that's a thing that actually a lot of people do, and that a lot of people can get away with. People whose trauma, is not that huge. People whose trauma is not that huge, right, can just hide all of it and keep it hidden and have a pretty okay life. But the bigger it is what we're hiding from ourselves, the more work our bodies and brains have to put into hiding it. Like it's actual work. It's like constantly, moment to moment. Because, here's why. Because behind those walls, in those emotions, there's this organic impulse to be fully alive and to fully feel. So every hurt that's hiding somewhere in my body, somewhere inside myself I still feel it. And that place of hurt is like looking and scanning for the opportunity. When might it be safe enough? Where might there be an opening for me to feel hurt and have that be seen and held? Right? Because this is another organic part of our programming, is that we're designed to be in relationship, and we're designed to have our experiences, our emotional experiences, seen and reflected back to us and held. And we really, really, really need that. That's what helps us know who we are and how we are and what's going on. So that impulse to be seen is there, and it's constantly there in the background, kind of pushing, let me feel this, let me feel this. And then there are different ways that our bodies and brains just push that down, say, nope, sorry, nope, nope, nope. And the more there is, the more the body and brain has to work. And that work, that effort to not feel these things is done through various mechanisms in the body and the brain, like having our nerves not talk to each other so well, or like keeping our muscles tense or flaccid, or less blood flow. The various things, the various kinds of ways that our bodies and brains work to hide these painful emotional experiences from us, those things also cause our bodies and our thoughts and our experiences to not be optimal. And that can include various kinds of chronic syndromal problems, like chronic pain that without a medical explanation, or depression, fibromyalgia, lupus, many things that cause a great deal of suffering, many conditions or diagnoses that cause a great deal of suffering can originate, not that in every case this is what caused them originally, but in many cases those things can originate from our bodies and brains intentionally not working optimally with the survival goal of having us not feel these difficult feelings. So the answer to the question, why not just leave it alone? For those of us with significant developmental trauma, leaving it as alone as we can, leaving it alone leaves us with depression, anxiety, confusion, reactivity in relationships, the inability to trust and really be close to other people. All this stuff that causes us so much suffering in our lives, right? That's what leaving these hidden feelings hidden does, because they're hidden from our consciousness, but they're still there in our body. They're still doing their thing, and the ways that our bodies are blocking them is also doing its thing. So for many of us, just leaving it alone is not a great option. So what do we do? First thing, I think, is to let ourselves realize that this is true, right? That I let myself know and remember that I knew, oh yeah, right, I got a lot more unpleasant feelings than I even know they're in hiding. That's why I'm weird. So I'm going to be forgiving of myself. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to sort of relax around my opinions of myself and give myself space to be who I am with all of my particular quirks. Because one of the ways that all this hidden emotional trauma, one of the ways that it causes us suffering, it's actually a secondary effect. So there's the actual pain, the terror, the grief, the rage that we're hiding, and then there's the way we're covering it up, right? But then as it affects us, or as it breaks through, or as we see the impacts in our life, we have a reaction to that. Why am I so depressed all the time? Why am I so scattered? Why do I forget things? Why do I push people away? That's so stupid. I shouldn't be like that. I'm an adult. All the stuff I suffered with was way in the past. Like, I really should be able to get myself together here and handle it and just have my life. What's the matter with me? Why am I such a mess? Right? And it's when we're saying that, it's a rhetorical question, right? I'm not actually curious. It's a fair question. Why am I such a mess? It's a great question. But when I'm just throwing it at myself rhetorically, it's not a good question. It's a self-flagellation, beating myself up. So as we can realize and understand, okay, developmental trauma, hidden pain, this is the way we're designed, this is what I'm dealing with. It explains why I'm weird. It explains my quirks and the ways I hurt people and the ways I sabotage myself. So square one is deep breath, acceptance, patience, forgiveness, do my best to find a way to move forward in my life, knowing that I'm going to continue to be quirky, probably for a while. Right? It's relaxing about the whole thing. And when those critical thoughts show up, why aren't you to have the answer? Because I'm this really traumatized person who has all this hidden stuff that messes with me in all these ways. Yeah, that's why. And I still love myself and I forgive myself and I'm working on it. So, leave me alone. I want to bless myself, not criticize myself here. So that's kind of the first layer. The first layer is just practicing believing that there are reasons for all of the ways that I'm not the way I wish I was, that they're really solid reasons, like it totally makes sense that I'm like this, and that therefore being self-critical isn't helping me, so let me just stop it as best I can. And the patterns of self-criticism also, right, are things we learn to do to survive. So it's not as simple as that. So like being forgiving of myself, that I can't be more forgiving of myself. Just as much as I can, softening, accepting, letting go again. That's kind of phase one. That's kind of the first layer. Just like, it's okay that I am the particular mess that I am. It's okay. Like, this is how I am, so it might as well be okay, because fighting with gravity, fighting with what's actually here, is uses up our energy and our life force and doesn't change anything. You don't win. When you fight gravity, you don't win. So, what about these emotions themselves, the actual emotions? We do want, ultimately, every emotional piece that I'm hiding from myself, I would like to sort of break down the wall and let that emotion out and feel it and hold it and let it express in my body, you know, in my heart. Ultimately, that's what we do want to do, want to feel all of these things. However, it doesn't work to try to feel them all at once. It doesn't work to say, yes, I just want to tear everything open. I want to feel everything. I just want to feel everything. I mean, sometimes that happens. Sometimes people do that, and sometimes they end up in a broken down psychological state that they never return from. Right? The stuff is hidden for a reason, and we have capacity limitations on what we can tolerate. Now, fortunately for us, we also have like guards, right, gatekeepers that are already limiting how much can get in. For most of us, we're going to actually have to work at feeling this stuff more, because we have these automatic, mechanisms that keep the amount we can feel down. No, not so much. Certain people may have particular chemical configurations, or may be using certain medicines or certain breathing techniques or certain ways of sort of opening themselves up. So if that's something you're doing, then if you're doing something that's really designed to open you up and let everything in, then you may be putting yourself at risk for feeling too much. So I'm going to recommend that you do those things only under the supervision of someone who's very, very experienced and can give you good advice. But for most of us, we want to let the feelings out, let the feelings into our bodies and hold them a little at a time. And often that'll happen automatically, right? Something might happen and I might notice that I'm feeling some pain, some sadness and helplessness. And I might, hang out with it and realize, oh wow, I'm feeling right here, kind of in my chest, there's a sense of I feel so helpless. I feel kind of sick even. And we're sort of beginning to notice the feeling, and then it just kind of drifts away. That kind of thing happens a lot, right? And it's okay. It's okay. If we can access the stuff piece by piece, then we are, we're making progress. I mean, that's the way that we want to go. That said, for many of us, the rate at which our bodies are going to let us feel things is actually too slow. And we need to find some way to safely feel a little more quickly. That's the emotional embodiment work that I will talk about in a separate talk. So there's another thing that I want to say, and I think this can help with the piece around self-acceptance and self-forgiveness and patience. And that's this. Everybody is struggling with this. Everybody has pain and discomfort that they are actively hiding from themselves. And everybody is trying to find their balance and feel okay. Yes, some of us have a more severe case of that than others. And some of us are more directly impacted by it, right? Some people seem to have theirs really well hidden away, so they can be out in the world behaving really badly, actually, but they seem to be feeling okay about themselves, right? People are different. But everybody's got, like, this stuff. And like, the way it shows up, right, the way these feelings show up, it's back to the experience. Part of the experience of developmental trauma, of this, right, this abandonment or this terror, whatever happened, something happened, and I wasn't okay. And one of the elements of that is this sense that I'm in this by myself. There may have been people, whatever the thing was, there may have been people around. There may have been wonderful people around who really loved and cared for me. But in that moment, those people were not able to keep me safe, or that was my experience. So there's a quality of, I'm in this on my own, right? I'm all alone in this. That's sort of part of what's embedded in this experience of trauma. So it makes sense then that as we're, walking through our lives and feeling all of the effects of these old traumatic events and emotions, that part of what we would feel would, I'm in this alone. Because that is the quality of the experience that we had. The original experience had this quality of, I'm not okay, it's too much, and I'm alone. So as we're doing our work as adults, we're going to tend to feel like that. I'm not okay, this isn't okay, I'm alone in this. So that, like, pretty much everything that our unpleasant emotions declare to us is not true. Pretty much everything they say isn't true. And this is one example, right? That this emotional quality shows up and says, I'm all alone. You're all alone in this. You're all alone in this. No one can help you. You're uniquely a problem, and you're isolated, right? All that stuff. Each one of us, right? Each one of us, it's like we're all in this big circle. None of us can see anybody else, and each one of us is in our own little place feeling, I'm all alone in this, I'm all alone in this, and right next to us is someone else, I'm all alone, right? It's not the truth. It just isn't the truth. We're not alone in this, right? We're all having this experience. Everybody, all around us, people who look really put together are struggling so much inside. So remember that, right? And let's see if we can, hold curiosity and compassion for the people that were our lives, people in our lives, the people we interact with as we move through our day, and the people closest to us. Curiosity and compassion. Curiosity for, I wonder how they're like really suffering inside and how they deal with it. And oh, look, like this way that they do this thing that really is so uncomfortable for me. I guess that's like that. It's coming out of that place where they're inside feeling the same sort of difficulty and suffering that I am. Right? We're not alone in this. Everybody's doing it. Everyone's experiencing it. So grace for ourselves, grace for one another, curiosity, forgiveness, patience, and of course, boundaries is an important topic, right? It's pretty much impossible to effectively have a posture of grace, forgiveness, and compassion for others who are really difficult around me if I haven't established how to have my boundaries and how to know I matter, my needs matter, I am worthy. Here's how I'm arranging it so that as many of my needs can be met as I can muster, right? So I'm not suggesting compassion for others that depletes or injures myself, but looking for a place of solidness in me, a place of curiosity and compassion and knowing my worth, from which I can have compassion for others, and from which I can look for wisdom. So I was talking about how one of the qualities of living with this unresolved developmental trauma is that each of us feels, I'm all alone in this. Each of us has this profound, intense experience of, I'm alone in this, no one can help me, there's no one here. And we have that because that was the quality of the experience in the original trauma experience. But like many things that our emotions tell us, it's not the truth. It's not true. And everywhere around us, people are suffering. People have their own flavors and their own ways of expressing it. And the way someone expresses their suffering might look like, violence toward the people around them. So it's not like, oh, well, now that I know everyone's suffering, I can just relax, right? No, of course not. It's not as simple as that. But I'm inviting sort of just a subtle shift in how I relate to myself and others. Okay, I guess I really don't need to beat myself up, because if I look around, I can actually see the evidence that yes, everybody else really is messed up too. So let me sort of soften in relation to myself. And then as I soften in relation to myself, can I soften in relation to other people? Can I be curious about how to adjust the ways I respond, how to be less sure that I'm right, how to have space for not getting things exactly the way I think I want them, but working with others to find ways that are good enough. So you're not alone. Everybody's in this, right? And let's have some curiosity. Let's have a lot of curiosity about ourselves and each other. Let's see if we can have a lot of compassion for ourselves and for each other. And one of the recordings on my SoundCloud page is called the Visiting Emotions Process. And I'm mentioning that because we're talking about these hidden emotions and about how we can't bring them all out all at once, but we do want to get little bits of them. And sometimes there's some emotions that I just would never go to because I'm so trained. Like, it's just a habit. I don't go there. So this visiting emotions process just takes you and to visit with several different, like about a dozen or so different emotional experiences. And doing that can sort of grease the wheels, can sort of like when you do that process, you can, with some emotions, you might say, oh, wow, yeah, I sort of do feel something here. This is interesting. Right? Like there's some excitement at connecting with this because it's real, or there's some wariness that shows up if I try to go toward this emotion because, wow, I guess I can know that I'm hiding that one from myself, right? I don't expect anything really, really big to happen. It's just one sort of the subtle work. We're doing this subtle work, this gentle work, right? To shift things bit by bit. We don't want to knock anything down. We want to just gently find the edges and gently move things. So I encourage you to do practices that bring you in touch with emotions intentionally, and so the one I mentioned that I have, and there are many people are doing many wonderful things with respect to emotions. So that's something else, something that we can do to begin to find them. I think that's enough for this talk, so I'm going to stop now, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing in working with yourself, understanding yourself, and becoming a sort of bigger, broader, gentler person in the world. Thank you so much for hanging out with me here. Okay, see ya.